Actually, maybe before we get to the Middle East, can we talk about Sudan?
Sure.
The Secretary saw that you put out a readout last night. The Secretary spoke with General Burhan. First, can you say how it's going in terms of the process of getting the Sudanese armed forces into the talks in Switzerland?
So that continues to be an ongoing effort, and we're continuing to stress how vitally important it is for them to be there. Look, for any kind of negotiation, then when we're talking about the ultimate goal here being a cessation of hostilities, a cessation of violence, you certainly need both military actors to be part of that conversation. We are continuing to engage with both parties separately. The RSF delegation is in Switzerland and are ready for negotiations, but outside of that, there is far too much additional work to be done, specifically in talking about some of the humanitarian issues and technical concerns. So that process has begun, and discussions as it relates to humanitarian actors, ensuring humanitarian access, achieving a ceasefire, that has proceeded with international partners and technical partners on what that roadmap will look like. And simultaneously, we're continuing to press to make sure that both of these parties can participate in negotiations to get this process moving forward.
Sure. I know that's the language you've been using, that both parties need to participate. Did you see any headway with the Sudanese armed forces in the call?
I don't have any specifics to offer beyond the Secretary's call, beyond just saying that this is something that we are working around the clock. The Secretary obviously had the chance to speak with General Burhan yesterday in Switzerland itself. Special Envoy Perriello, Special Envoy Hammer continue to be deeply engaged in representing the United States. Outside of that, I don't want to get ahead of the process.
Sure. Just one more in Sudan. The Sudanese army said today that it's going to open the crossing with Chad. I don't know if you have any reaction to that. Humanitarian groups have been pushing for that.
So, this is something that the Secretary spoke to General Burhan about yesterday, and it's certainly a welcome announcement. We're aware that the Sudan's Sovereign Council has agreed to reopen the Adre border crossing with Chad for humanitarian deliveries for 3 months. We are going to continue to call on both the SAF and the RSF to facilitate unrestricted humanitarian access through all available channels. We think that's vitally necessary, and we think that specifically as it relates to that border crossing, restoring access from that point is an important step in providing humanitarian aid to the many impacted Sudanese people.
Sure. Let's go to Gaza then. I'll talk to my colleagues as well. But I know that Admiral Kirby over at the White House spoke at length on this today. But I wanted to ask you, one of the things that he kept saying was that this is the negotiations and the discussions in Doha right now are very much about implementation at this point, that the broader framework has been agreed. Could you explain that a little bit?
Sure.
If not mistaken, Hamas has actually said that we need to implement what the president proposed on May 31st. I know you wouldn't say you're taking the Hamas position on this, but is there a sense that it needs to be implemented, that there isn't like a room for more negotiations?
So I would very much echo what Admiral Kirby said, and I spoke a little bit about this earlier in the week in response to, I think, a question Saeed had and a number of you as well. It is our view, and it continues to be the case, that the broader framework of what the president laid out at the end of May has generally been accepted. But of course, this is a negotiation with two parties, and this is a process, and you sort of see what the text of the agreement is, and there's a back and forth, and there's an exchange, and there is engagement. And so we feel confident in saying that the contours of what the president outlined on May 31st has been accepted, and what we are focusing on now and what the talks are focusing on is working on the details of the implementation. There, of course, are still gaps when it comes to some of the details. There are gaps when it comes to execution. There are specific implementing measures that need to be agreed upon, but beyond that, I'm just not going to get into the specifics, Sean.
I'll defer to my colleagues.
Great.